I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mary Abrazazi. I am the program manager with Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor, and I manage the Tourism Infrastructure and Events Grant Program. We appreciate your time and interest in this program. We know you all have fun and interesting projects, and we look forward to hearing from you. But please, for the duration of the workshop, please remain muted. If you have questions, please post them in the chat and we will answer your questions during the question and answer period at the end of the call. First, a little bit about the program. This is the collaborative partnership program between New York State Canal Corp and Erie Canalway to offer competitive grant funding to support tourism and recreation along the New York State canal system and communities within the canal corridor. This program focuses on infrastructure and amenity improvements that boost tourism and expand the audience of canal users. This year, as you've probably noticed, we're placing an emphasis on projects and events that improve access for all community members and that help fill gaps in local services and amenities. Today's workshop is designed to inspire and equip you with practical, bite-sized initiatives that you can incorporate into your events to ensure that all potential participants can engage fully. Funding is open to counties, municipalities, units of local government, not-for-profit organizations, and federally recognized Native American tribes. The application window for the event grants opens on October 14th. The application deadline is November 27th, and we will announce awardees in February of 2026. Once the application window opens on October 14th, a link to apply via the online application portal, Good Grants, will be available on the Erie Canalway Grants Resources page. Next, I'd like to introduce my colleague Sasha from New York State Canal Corporation.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see so many participants today. So as Mary mentioned, I'm Sasha Del Perel. I'm from the New York State Canal Corporation. We're the state agency that is responsible for operating, maintaining, and promoting the 524 miles of New York State canal systems, as well as our land-based asset, the Erie and Champlain Canalway Trail. As Mary mentioned, this is a joint grant program between the New York State Canal Corporation and Erie Canalway National Heritage Corridor. We've been fortunate to partner with the Erie Canalway National Heritage Corridor for nearly 2 decades now on programming and promotional efforts. This grant is just one example of the many impactful partnership programs we run together. I definitely encourage you to visit the Canal Corporation Partnership website to learn more about other joint programs. But obviously today we're here to talk about the New York State Canal System Grant Program, which we're in the 5th year of administering. Working with Erie Canalway National Heritage Corridor, we've established a set of program objectives, which Mary mentioned before. Those are intended to be met by both the events grants and our tourism infrastructure grants. Specifically for the event grants, we want to support public events and festivals that encourage the exploration and enjoyment of the canal corridor, the canal corridor's cultural, natural, and recreational offerings. We're looking for events that can meet one or more of the following categories, and all of this are in the program guide, so you don't need to take notes. But we're looking for events that are system-wide or regional in nature and highlight the canal's uniqueness as a linear recreational asset, events that celebrate the history of the canal, events that promote recreation or performance-based arts like concerts. They also can encourage overnight stays, and we also want to see events that could potentially draw diverse audiences, as well as being welcoming to people of all ages and abilities. And as I mentioned, the complete list of these objectives and the program categories can be found in the program guide, which we'll link to in the chat. Please, please, please take a look at this document before starting your application, as each year we make small tweaks. So even if you're somebody who's familiar with the application and program guide of last year, it's not going to be the same. And I want to just highlight a few of the a few of the changes that we're making this year from last year before we get into the meat of today's discussion. The first is that we've added a resource page to the bottom of the guide. This includes design guidelines and recommendations of best practices, a description for each of those resources, and a breakdown of where their application should be applied. So events versus tourism infrastructure provided in the grant guide. But if you have any questions, please email Mary to find out more. Secondly, we've also placed additional questions in the application about site information and ownership. As reviewers, we need to understand where exactly your event is taking place. This is of particular importance if you are not a site owner. So understanding that you have permission from the property owner is very important. And then also if you're proposing something on Canal Corporation land, for us to understand precisely where it's taking place from a maintenance and operations standpoint is critical for us even being able to score your application. And lastly, but clearly not least, we're placing additional emphasis on accessibility. So that's the whole point of today's workshop. We want to educate potential applicants on what you can do to be welcoming to people living with disabilities. The application this year has been updated to ask specific questions about your accessibility measures. Again, resources for best practices are provided in the program guide, and Anita O'Brien's workshop today will be a great educational resource and really get you off to the right start. Additional points will be provided to applicants that meet these new standards. And so we really want to encourage you, particularly if you are an event that is longstanding and has come to us year after year for sponsorship support, to really consider what measures you can take this year to improve the accessibility of your event. So now I'll pass it over to Anita O'Brien, our event accessibility educator for today's workshop. She is the executive director of Rochester Accessible Adventures, a Western New York-based organization whose mission is to reshape recreation and provide a model for inclusive services that are attainable for any business. So thank you, Anita, so much for being here today, and I look forward to the discussion. So thank you.
Fantastic. It's great to see familiar faces in the group, and really a very special thank you to Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor for your commitment and continued commitment to inclusion of people with disabilities in recreation and tourism. Fantastic things are happening across the Canalway, and as mentioned, today's workshop is really a next step that the Canal Corridor is taking to support and really catalyze the ability for businesses, programs, and events across the state to become leaders in inclusive recreation and tourism. So I'm very happy to be here with you today, along with colleagues from across the different communities who are all joining in as allies, really, to this growing momentum around not only the need for, but the solutions for being able to provide fun and inclusive recreation adventures in a way that includes the whole family. So I'm going to just begin sharing, if I can get that to set up. Here we go. Sasha, is that showing up on your end? Okay, super. Thanks. Yes. All right. So I will give a quick note that most of the photos that you're going to see are people with disabilities in New York State or who have come from other states to participate in recreation along our Canalway corridor. And so take a look at that and take a look at potential people that you could be inviting to your community. A good place for us to start is with some numbers. Did you know that 80% of your health, my own health and wellness, takes place outside of medical offices? So think about it. Where do you address your health and wellness? When I look around at the opportunities, it's your programs, your types of festivals and events that I'm likely to go to for social engagement, for a break from the pace of work, for some time to spend with my own family and friends. And if there's something more than great beverages and food, I actually reap the physical benefits of kayaking or going on guided excursions or on a bird walk. Another number is 26% of Americans. 26% of us are living with a disability alongside our family and friends. And if you think about your own self, your own community, and you don't yet know somebody with a disability, you might also think again, because sometimes not all disabilities are visible. And so odds are you have met somebody, you might work with somebody with a disability. And as mentioned here, we're not talking about just 26%, we're talking about their family member. So very quickly, this number doubles, and that's important, especially as we look at this next number. $490 billion in annual discretionary spending power in the US by people living with disabilities. And their family and friends might also want to drop a few. So when I think about the benefit for our communities, I'm thinking not only of your fabulous programs, but the dollars that people will spend on lodging, in restaurants. Maybe you have a gift shop and they're going to purchase things, they're going to stop for gas, they're going to also then go back and use word of mouth to invite their friends, their networks to come to your events. So you may be thinking, if you don't already know us, what does Rochester Accessible Adventures have to do with that? We formed 10 years ago because of something that we were hearing. I was running programming for people with disabilities. Great stuff: golf, outrigger canoeing, sailing, cycling, programs on certain days, certain times for people with disabilities. Each time we would finish that really cool thing, that clinic, someone would say, "Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know I'd be able to do that after my stroke, after my spinal cord injury. I didn't know my child would be able to do that with that kind of diagnosis." And then they would say, "Where can we just, go do it?" And I had no answers for them. They could only do that with me because I had everything that they could do it with. And yet other people have true choice. Lots of festivals, concerts, adventures, and programs that they could wake up on a Saturday morning and say, "Where do we want to go? What do we want to do?" And they would never just go without, or everybody else can just go without thinking about whether or not they would actually be able to participate once they got there. And that has become our mission, is to improve health and wellness of people with disabilities by guiding the communities to create a culture of physical accessibility, social inclusion, and equitable access in recreation, sports, and tourism. Because we want people, all people, to wake up on that next morning and say, what do we want to do for our fun and adventure today? Where do we want to go for our weekend adventure or our month-long vacation? With the people they want to be with, doing what they want to do. So the shortcut to today is that that's what we're going to do. We're going to jump right in with looking at specifically how you can be introduced to inclusion and accessibility principles, so that as you're planning to write your grant and submit your grant request, that you're going to look at your own event through a lens of inclusion in a way that helps you create and construct that event from the ground up, rather than an afterthought. So as you're considering your preparation for the grant request, you'll be able to apply these basic principles that we're going to give you today. Mind you, RAA spends a year with our inclusion partners actually implementing these kinds of things, but this is that really maybe to jolt you into some thought processes. Hopefully you'll take away some tidbits today that you hadn't thought of. And those are usually the things that get left out. And so we're hoping that that you will move forward thinking differently about your event. It does help to know what we might be talking about when we're talking about inclusion and accessibility. Diane Richler says inclusion is not a strategy to help people fit in to things that we already have in place, but it's about transforming the systems, transforming the way we do things that makes it better for everyone. And then Anita says, it works best when you plan for inclusion. Otherwise, it is an afterthought. All right, so let's look at accessibility. Accessibility is removing barriers that prevent people with disabilities from participating fully. They're usually in the form of physical obstacles, communication blocks, cognitive barriers that haven't been considered. There's a longer list here, but those are just a few examples. And the question that guides me is, whose mom or grandpa or child or aunt or friend do we not want to come? And if you can't answer that question, which I don't think we can, in our heart of hearts, we want everybody to be at our event, then it is certainly time to plan to remove the barriers that are keeping people from participating. Inclusion, the two are similar and different, is making sure everyone feels invited to come, welcomed when they arrive, and involved alongside everyone else. It's not just accommodating someone because, I don't know, the ADA tells us we need to, but it's really about that value. Like the person is your mother or is your child, or you can't imagine them sitting over there while you go have all the fun. It's that kind of thing that we're looking for with your events. It's very intentional, and I'm just going to give you these visuals because sometimes pictures do speak loud. And in these images from left to right on my screen, you see something that I can't explain. I don't know why that blue painted ramp going down the stairwell under the grab bar is any good for anybody. The one in the middle, I give them some credit because it probably was somebody had an accident or they did have a stroke or they had a change in life and that was needed. And so they just put it up. It's not real great. No rails, sketchy all around. But when it's planned intentionally, like you knew somebody might want to use this facility at some point, and they might have different mobility methods, it looks really good. It works really well. And people feel that. I feel very differently about the picture on the left. So what can you do? First thing that I would suggest is that you make this a goal. You prep your party that you're about to throw for all the attendees that could come. And in order to do that, you're going to take this mindset of our event is going to be inclusive of everyone. We're going to figure out how to do that. And you're going to make sure that everybody on your team and everybody that's going to be involved with your event is also aware of that. Very, very important starting principle. Name it, claim it, own it, and then you'll be able, as you move into these next principles, you'll see how important it is to bring in everybody into your goal. The second thing also starts with you. It starts with you understanding language and the fact that word choice is incredibly important. Word choice can empower people. It can also harm people. And so what you want to do is to become aware, and maybe this is the first time you're hearing that, around disability. And so you're thinking, well, what does she mean? As I'm going to give you just a few things to start off here, we're also going to give you a nice hefty 10-page resource that I would say read it before you do your application process. Just read through it to understand how you're going to incorporate empowering language, because you're going to need to train your staff and volunteers so that they also are aware of that. Here's a snapshot from the resource that you're going to receive. And what I like about this resource is that it starts you off with some words to avoid. And we're avoiding them because language is shifting, times are shifting, people are owning different words and they're disowning different words. And you want to stay up to date on that. If it's not personal to you, you might not know. So you want to be informed. And so this one gives you some suggested alternatives. And then it also gives you some commentary about what was in 2024 at the top of the list for inclusive language in this particular case. That's as deep as I'm going to go into it right now, because we have many things we want to give you, but you will be given this link. You see it here, and then you'll also be connected with that link later. But easy first step, right? Just read something and absorb it. And as you're doing that, see how you can start to apply it. I'll give you one right off the bat. Parking isn't handicapped. Neither are entrances or restrooms. What you want to do is switch to, well, what is it? It's accessible or reserved parking. It's an accessible entrance, accessible restrooms. And I don't know about you, but when I see handicap parking, handicap whatever, because I live and breathe in this world, I know that that word just makes me flinch. And so if that's doing it to somebody and you can use a stronger, more empowering word, I invite you to use that. Here you see people erecting some new signage. They chose reserved parking so that they can designate what even is a grassy lot for space and makes it feel welcoming and intentional. All right, I'm going to keep running with this. This concept of functional ability for me helps me understand what I'm trying to do. If I said, hey, I want you to develop your program for people with cerebral palsy and for people with spina bifida and for people with Parkinson's and so on, you might freeze up. But if I said, hey, did you know that when we go to an event, we're using these 5 parts of ourself? Communication, intellectual, sensory, physical, and social emotional. That's how we're going to function as we go through your event. And it very much depends on the environment that I go into as to how my 5 pieces of me are going to react. And so our role as facilitators is to be preparing our events for people who are operating on varieties of communication elements, sensory experiences, physical mobility, physical engagement, social, emotional, and intellectual cognitive spaces. To me, that's a lot easier. And you'll see it kind of weigh out as we go through some of these different elements. So I'll keep that little graphic up there so you can remind yourself that's what we're talking about. And the reality is you can do this as a programmer. For this first part, I'll be silent for a minute. I want you to think about your event that you are about to apply for. Imagine a guest. Did you start back with the flyer? They're going to receive your flyer, or they're going to hear about it word of mouth. They may go to your website to check it out. Once they're there, here's first 2 things that came to my mind. Maybe it's a guided tour, so they're going to have to receive the information the guide wants to give them. They may have to move from the parking lot to the 2nd floor. Hopefully you're taking yourself through the guest perspective of actually being in your event. Okay? Maybe they have to stand still for the birds to land on their hands. It's very much a sensory experience, right? Like, I gotta be quiet for that bird to land on my hand. I can't fidget around if that bird's gonna land on my hand. Very sensory. Might be getting in and out of a kayak. I might be moving from point A to point B. I might have to follow directions to stay safe. I might just need to take a break. I might be sitting and enjoying music and performances. Probably gonna need to use a restroom. You may have food and beverages. All of these tweak. I tried to color code a little bit. They tweak part of our functional ability. And if we took a poll in this group, we would find out that we do these things differently. And the reality is when we add in all of our community members, we certainly have a lot of variation. The key is to not assume. Don't assume the ability of the person. Oh, they're using a wheelchair, so they're gonna. It's not true. Rarely are 2 people the same, even if they both use a wheelchair or both have the same diagnosis. So what you do is to implement your best practices and let people know how you enhanced your programmatic experience so they can figure out if they want to come and if it'll work for them. Enhance your experience is what we're asking you to do in preparation for your grant requests and in preparation for your event in the coming year. And one of the places you can start is the parking. I know you all have different variations of parking. It makes a huge difference. The surface of the parking, whether or not you're coning off sections, whether or not it's well labeled. This lot has in front of us, I think there's 6 designated spots, but for a big event of 300 people, let me tell you, you're going to want to have more than 6 people. And so you want to cordon some off, block some off. You want to have ensure clear signage directing guests to that accessible designated kind of parking. I just was in an event this weekend and I didn't have a tag in the car. It's a rental car and needed to have the closest parking possible. And they said, that's what this is for. It's just for easy access up there. So, turn right and you'll be in that lot. And I thought that was so cool. I got to stop and roll down my window, tell somebody my need, and get very clear directions. I was very appreciative of that. And then another thing to consider in some of your parking lots, are you having people traverse maybe they're using a scooter or wheelchair behind parked cars where they could be, not seen, not visible. Parking attendants help with that kind of thing. If you can provide parking info prior to the event, absolutely do it. Before I went to that event, I was wasn't finding very much. But it really makes a difference to know what to expect when you get there before you actually get there. So this signage for the coastal studies let us know that visitor parking and wheelchair access was at the other side of the building, which I had already gotten out of the car at that point to go to the door to find that space. So as much as you can give somebody advanced experience about parking, the better. So you start from there with your route of travel. I'm taking you through that visual, right, of your guest. I don't know exactly what your event's going to look like, but here's a couple of different scenarios. You want to look at the route of travel. Sometimes I've been to these kinds of events where there's vendors, and the vendors have been up on the curb. So the people are in the street and the vendors on the curb. So there's no curb cuts going into the vendor's tent. So it's not equitable access. And it becomes really awkward then when people are just kind of peering over into the tent and not really want to spend their money where they can't get up and see. So this idea of putting your tents in the middle of the street kind of works for that. The one on the right at the top there, they put mats down in front of theirs. Go AARP. I thought, yeah, why not make it like a welcome mat and cover up some of that pretty large chunky gravel that's there. And then, consider if you're outsourcing and you have vendors that come in with stairs only, how can you as the host ask them to change that? Kind of hard on the day of. I walked all around this one looking for a workaround. Could have been a conversation beforehand. They make ramps. They had plenty of room in the site where this one could have been accessible access to that. So looking for your no-step access to vendor tents. And a couple other things that come in with this is some of you might be doing tours and you're like, oh, we'll cross the street and we'll go over to that sidewalk and then we'll cut across here. Look at all of your cut across paths because there's usually often a curb somewhere in there and you're just thinking about people that are walking and don't have bad needs and that the step up would be okay for. So have everybody traverse down to the corner, cross at the light, go over to the sidewalk together. Consider your seating. I love this picture of the two sitting on these outdoor benches there side by side. And she didn't need to leave. I don't know if she had the ability to leave her scooter, but she didn't have to. They both had equitable sight line and they could sit beside each other. Really want to plan for shared experience in any small details. All of these were part of a larger event, so these were just stations along the way. it was great that people could go to more than one. If you're asking yourself, hey, we have a 3-inch step up or a hard transition, here's some really good, not too expensive transition pieces. Moby mats do cost more, but these small pieces that can help you cover some of those trickier spaces, it's very worth the investment. You can use it year after year, and you can start using it on different events throughout the year, not just this one particular one. Another idea with this is to partner with your community to borrow these mats. In this example, we had worked with the DEC on accessible fishing, and the city of Rochester was going to hold their annual family fishing day. And I knew the park that they were doing it at. It's one big grassy hill, incline down to the water. And I'd called them up and said, hey, could you add some Moby mats? And they said, we don't have any. I said, but the county does, and it's pre-season, it's pre-beach season. So could you ask them to bring their mats over so that you can have the mats for this event every April? And that's what they've been doing. You can just see the mats behind the people there. They brought them down. They made a horizontal piece as well as the vertical down the hill. And then they could advertise that it was accessible. Among other things they were doing, but that was a key piece for me. Is I wouldn't want to be pitching down a hill towards water without some way to be safe with that. Okay, deep breath. That was parking. That's your route of access. Now you want people going through your event. I love the big signage here. Love big signage. I'm very partial to good wayfinding. I don't, if you'll recall, like the word. And I hope that when it flashed up there, you went, hey, what? Didn't think we were supposed to use that word. So this could be very quickly changed into accessible route, access path, many other things, but I do like how large it is. You want clear signage throughout the event space. You can have volunteers that are stationed at pivotal points to be that signpost. You can have maps of your event so people know where different things are. Because just think about it, say you're a parent with a child, you got things going on, you want to know where that sensory-friendly space is, that quiet area. You have no idea, you're in the middle of the chaos area. So boom, there's the beacon, now you know where to go. Or the restrooms. Usually people wait to the last minute. Where are they? Keep it clear, keep it obvious, make sure people know. The thing you want to start thinking about, among many, is remove the ask. How many times can you make your event one that people don't have to ask because you are providing the way? I encourage you to go to rochesterfringe.com. Fantastic work they've been doing the last, I'd say, 2 years of their event to increase accessibility. They now have an accessibility tab. And I'd love for you to spend some time before you make your application, because we're going to talk about your event descriptions. And this can give you some great samples of things that you could add in. Here's another one. I would love for you to look at Columbus Arts Festival. .org, their accessibility tab. They have a map that follows this one. Very so intentional. They lay out the things that they've added in, the work that they've done prior to the event to remove the ask and to get more people feeling like they really are invited to be there and to engage. And I think that's what we all want. For whatever was your motivating reason, whether it was the 4.9 billion or the fact that that's 1 in 4 of us out there, and we're obviously missing some great people. The really cool thing is, I mentioned this earlier, people are going to be there. You're going to have them stay and play, and they're going to need a place to go. And are you prepared? And are you prepared? I followed signs throughout this event. Clear, I don't even remember, maybe 3 football lengths following signs to the restroom. And I came to this. And I said, hey, I was pretty sure they were going to have an accessible porta potty. But I hadn't seen anything but these signs. So continue to walk around the other side, and there it is. And it had a sign right in front of it. Nowhere else in the rest of the event space was there a sign directing me to let me know that there would be one of these. So have your ADA compliant restroom option. Be prepared to pay that price to have those if you don't traditionally have them. Make sure you situate it on even surface with a no-step entry. Please do watch if there's an incline. It really is disastrous, doesn't work. And also we've seen it where it's up on a curb. And so you have to step up because the curb was convenient to get it off of the path, but it doesn't work either. So start paying attention to those kinds of functional details. I'm very quickly going to drop this into your mind, but there's a Changing Spaces campaign. Don't know if you're familiar with it, but what happens in reality, and I was appreciative that Charlie's family had included this picture on the Changing Spaces campaign page, because this is the reality. If those of you who live in Fairport, and we now have a fabulous new restroom that's available there, it's on purpose, and it has a changing space table that fits up to, I don't know, 450 pounds. You know, the little baby infant ones, we outgrow those pretty quick in our life. But this is the reality. Either people go home or they endure the undignified experience of having to be laid down on the bathroom floor. That's my pitch. We're looking for allies in this. If your event has this, either you have a changing station permanent, or you figure out how to help us get the temporary mobile changing stations to your event, you will be added to this nationwide directory. And this will draw people to you, because who wants to drive 3 hours to your event, no matter how good it is, to not have a dignified place to use the restroom? All right, join us for that. We have talked about inclusion, empowering language, parking, gotten people in, directing them where they need to go. They get to go to the bathroom. How are you doing? Are you hanging in there? Okay, I can see a few heads and they're nodding. So if not, throw something in the chat and we'll stop for a quick second. But I'm going to keep going, because now it's time to look at your event. We've kind of moved around your event, right? We're in it, we're thinking about wayfinding, that kind of experience piece. But programmatically, there's a lot that you can do as well to ensure that you are responsive ahead of time to anticipating people's needs, or responsive to things that might arrive during the event. So one of these is amplification. Some of you are going to have speakers, you're going to have music, you might have a guided tour, an excursion that heads off down a trail. And to the person, most of the time, people say, oh, I have the loud voice. That's why I'm the speaker. That's why I'm the tour guide. I have the loud voice. But it's better to not assume that you know what somebody's hearing is like. You're familiar with your voice amplification, but you don't know their hearing. So we always say amplify. We were kind of checking out this farm fair. That's why you're seeing some of these pictures. But we got on this hayride, which had a 4-step entry to it. So we were thinking about all the lifts that exist for such hayrides. But I noticed that our tour guide was wearing this little pouch around her neck. So I asked her about it afterwards. Her coworker was in the back corner, right in front of the motor of the tractor. So when it was his turn to speak, it was pretty much, just to me, muted by the tractor. But every time this tour guide spoke, crystal clear, could hear it. Ironically, they should have switched because she had more background noise. But how easy and how relatively inexpensive. And you can go up to the several $100s worth of these, but I picked one that she had that I knew gave decent amplification. So you want to be thinking about all of these aspects. You're delivering information. Can people hear it? Maybe I actually give them laminated scripts of the tours. Cornhill Navigation has started a guided tour Their narrators on their tour boats have a pretty scripted conversation with their guests on those tours. That script can be plugged in from an app on the guest's phone now. And so people can use their personal headphones and they can borrow some, but they can plug right into it and get the kind of amplification that they need. They also put the script on laminated cards. They had a student group come this past school year, and a mother saw the description and she contacted their inclusion point of contact and said, I'm going to be coming with my son. My son is deaf. Can I get the script ahead of time so I can kind of prep him? That would be better. And they had it. And they were able to send her the script ahead of time. The parent checked in afterwards. She said that was it. That made it for him because he didn't have to use his energy to strain to figure out what was happening. He already could join right in. You might use communication cards if you have somebody who's nonverbal. Whip it out. Have your staff let people point to it. You can make your communication card for your event so that people can ask questions like, where's the restroom? Where's the food? Those kinds of things. Another thing for your staff and volunteers is that they all should have an app on their phone. So if they're the parking attendant or they're at booth number 9 or wherever they are, easy one is called Talk to Deaf app. That's the QR code for it. You add that to your phone and it's going to look like the screen that you see there. You can speak into your phone. Hi, how are you doing? It types that. You can turn that to the person. They can text, thank you, I'm good. Or they can audibly answer if they have audible capacity. So it allows you, we used to carry sticky notes around and a pen. You'd write, you can still do that. But this app allows people just to turn that phone and start talking. You can also sign them up for sign language class so they have some intro sign language. When you have speakers, please make sure that you've reserved an ASL interpreter and other languages too. Kind of really looking at your potential population. And you want to do that in advance. There's more I could say on that, but those are my 2 tidbits. Make sure you have one. Some of you who may be further out from Rochester, they still send their interpreters down and around to these different communities. So requesting one in advance is very important. Another thing about communication is we started off with, did they receive your flyer? What was on the flyer? What was on your social media? What's on your website? There's lots and lots of really cool things that you can do to make your flyers and your websites and your social media more inclusive. The one for today is using alt text. That's the alternative text feature that is now on most of the platforms where you can click and it will either generate you something that's sometimes feeble, but sometimes very helpful, at least gets you started, and you add an image description directly into your post. Most people are reading those images to get some information, but a lot of people that use a screen reader, that screen reader is the only way they're seeing that. And let me just give you a quick example. So Doug's Trust posted, like this post if you love Ruby's ears. Okay, who's Ruby? And what are her ears look like? Aren't you thinking that? Then they have an image description, a medium-sized white dog with a brown patch of fur around her eye, standing outside. Her ears are large and tall on her head, with one flopping inward slightly. Oh, now I get it. It's kind of cute. It's got to be the cutest puppy we ever saw. And that is great. That is what the screen reader will read to someone who has vision impairment or is blind. So now they know what you're seeing. Without that, it's just like this post if you love Ruby's ears. And I can tell you, I don't think I would spend much time on that without the image description. And there's Ruby. See, it makes a difference, right? How many of you just went, aw, yeah. So the image description made me say, aw, I can visualize a cute dog. Please start using alt text. Add a sensory-friendly station to your event space. These are becoming more and more frequently experienced, and it's fantastic. It's a way immediately of communicating your intention to the community for people with disabilities to come and enjoy. It's a way to provide comfort and a sense of security, allows for a break from all of the movement and the sights and sounds of the day. It can be as simple as this pop-up unit that we use for some of our events where someone can crawl in and use some of the toys that we have inside there. It could be a 10 by 10 and you pop it up maybe somewhat slightly away from the ultra sound producing part of your event. But these spaces are designated. People know about them ahead of time. And they know that, okay, I could walk away, completely, or I can just go over to the space. It's not going to be silent. It's not that kind of quiet area, but it is going to be very welcoming. And that's the key that you want with your event. It's as easy as a 10 by 10, designating it. And the other really cool thing is that this becomes a community partnership. Both of these, one was the Lilac Festival. They partnered with Autism Up to run their sensory-friendly area. And the other was that farm event that had Autism Connections there to run that space for them. So what a great collaboration to build into your event. And this won't be the only thing that you learn about from them as well. And that becomes very beneficial for both parties. You can also have a mobile sensory kit, just throwing these things at you. There's lots of resources for you to continue the work, but Cornhill Navigation has one on each of their boats. And so if someone were to need some of these tools that are in there to help them get through the hour-and-a-half tour, they've got a kit. You can also invite guests to bring their own. Another very welcoming statement. The idea of minimizing the stress of something really big helps people cope. So that mental health, that safety, security piece of who we are. And I really liked how this event just made a little bit too narrow for wheelchair accessibility, but they made parameters. They built parameters for where one could play in this hay space with the toys that were there. And I can bet you if they had not done that, those kids would have been flying everywhere with those toys. But just building that parameter helped both the parents and the children understand the social norms that are expected for that activity. Photo ops, your event might have a photo op. Do what you can to make it very inclusive. I loved both of these, but I found the cow to be, we would have had to stack in front of each other. If someone had been, in a mobility device beside me, it wouldn't have been beside me. It's just a little, need to move it out a little bit more. And with the water drop one, the terrain around it is pretty rough for someone that might be using a wheelchair. And also, I think that the sturgeon is a little high for a child seated in a wheelchair. So there would have been no face hole for them. So maybe you had never thought of that. But, if you can't be in a photo op, it's sad. All right. I mentioned that we were going to talk about your event description, and I'll pause for a minute. Hopefully take a deep breath. I just threw, I don't know, 19, 25 things at you. And hopefully a few of them were ones that you thought, we don't do that yet. When you decide to be very intentional about this, you do want people to know. You want them to become very curious about your event, period, right? And the way you do it is how you describe it. And I can say that your event may sound like the thing that nobody should miss. Very dynamic, very exciting. But I'm still going to have my questions, my accessibility questions. Okay, so I don't want to miss that, but how am I going to be able to navigate it? And when you, if I just ask you to make it personal and say you want to take your grandmother, I don't know, your grandchild, your child, pick somebody as personal as you can get, somebody you really like, and you want to go to this event with them. And they need accessibility things to have happened. And you take that step, this becomes incredibly important. And I would, to some extent, make this mandatory, because why go through all the effort to say you're going to do some of these things, to actually do some of these things without telling people that you've done them? Really easy one. During COVID, one of the rec centers decided to open up their their outdoor movie program again. Everybody's going to stay in their car instead of getting out and sitting on the lawn. And so they posted that, and I emailed the director and said, don't you do closed captioning? And they said, oh yeah, we've done that the past 5 years. They told me the whole story of how they started it, and they're so proud. And I said, well, it's nowhere on your flyer. I said, why don't you take that flyer down, put the closed captioning symbol on it, and repost it? And they did. And as soon as they did, within the hour, it was being pushed around word of mouth. Hey, Sally, do you see this? Hey, Sarah, we should go. And these families were like, they didn't know that that been done for the past 5 years. And so why do it without telling people? Be so intentional that you're able to describe it for people to encourage them to come. And then learning how to make a good accessibility description. If you're going to have a trail and you're going to be describing it, easy, moderate, and strenuous gives me an idea, but it does not tell me whether or not somebody using a wheelchair or a scooter or a walker or canes or bad knees. It tells me nothing very helpful. But if you use actual descriptive info, it's a stone dust trail. It's pretty flat along the canal. It's a 1.5 mile loop with an entrance 10 yards from the designated accessible parking spaces. Boom. Right there, I have a sense of I'm going to park. There's the trailhead. And then it's going to be level, flat, in this case, stone dust. Much more helpful. What we're going to be giving you and adding to your resource kit is some samples. And here's a sample for a music festival where you're going to describe your event and people are going to want to come to the music festival, and you will have this following that event description. And these will be the things that you've worked on. And you're going to describe them. You're not going to say this event is accessible, because that's always up to somebody's opinion about whether they think it's accessible for them or for somebody else. But you're going to tell the very specific details, that things are ramped, or if they have 3 stairs, whatever the reality is, you're going to describe it so it's not a surprise and people are able to navigate it. You're going to let them know about those restrooms that you've put in place. You're going to let them know if you are just providing an ASL interpreter, or if they need to register and indicate that they would like an interpreter. That's also okay to have a process for that. Just give yourself time to be able to reserve an interpreter. And then one of the things we want you to do is assign an event accessibility coordinator. It does not mean that person knows all the answers, but it does mean that you are going to I just lost myself there. Did you see that? You're going to be able to let them know that you're working on their question for them, that you're taking their question, you're going to go find some answers, you're going to get back to them if you don't already know. But that is a welcome mat. If I read through a whole event and then it shows these features, and then I see we want to keep talking with you and know that we have everything you need, I feel like you really want me to be there. So having that designated person in and of itself is a welcome mat. Having the accessibility information is like flashing, screaming, saying, please come, please come, please come. Such a warm invitation. And those are the things that we want you to add in to your event this year. And let me give you an example of why it's so important. So a lot of people know that we're doing this work in the community, and they may hear, oh, I heard that that music fest is going to be accessible this year. And whenever I hear that, I jump on the website and I start looking. And then if that stuff's not there, I'm going to probably shrug and say, well, that sounds great. I don't know, and I'm not able to tell. So if you want to know, I would still try to find somebody to call, or you can just go find out. So it makes a difference for me as well, our organization, to be able to share out your information. And as much sharing as folks have been doing these days on fabulous invitations, just let it live and be live so that people can find it themselves. You can make great flyers, use inclusive language. These are examples from this summer, on the canals. A lot of these were first mile events as well with the canal corridor. But use the language there, use the icons, highlight something that you are doing that just, the main thing here is that people are going on a guided kayaking excursion. It's the little things that count. And so you want to figure out how to add those in there. Here's another one. These are some examples of icons, interpreter, closed captioning for that feature. And we ask that you use the more progressive icon, the most recent icon for disability accessibility. The forward motion is the one that people have gravitated to, and for many reasons, but it really is about the sense of being welcome. And here's Village of Brockport, some of their guided excursions, and they use a lot of the photos to show that everybody's out doing this. Come and join us. So those are ways that you can visibly attract people that you may not have been marketing to before. And the other part of that is whether or not you actually get this in front of people. So if you're going to spend money on interpreter, who do you want to attend? So have you invited people who are deaf? There's lots of deaf recreation groups, deaf support. There's lots of deaf connections in our region. And so you do a quick Google search on that and you'll find those links. You send it to those organizations and say, hey, we want you to come. And then now you have a new resource, a new connection in the community. So looking at applying for the grant, you may read a question. I don't know the questions exactly, but maybe it's tell us how you'll be planning for people with disabilities to participate in your event. And what I am looking for, and from my community side of it, is, tell me how you're removing the ask. Tell me how you're going to describe your event in a way that would attract people that I'm going to be promoting it out to. Use this, what I call lens of inclusion. All of this stuff is learning to look at your event very differently, perhaps, than you had been. And say, oh, better to catch it during planning stage. That's right. We'll need to have this. We'll want to have this. That's the kind of answers that you could share. These are the kinds of questions people are gonna, they ask. Right? We ask this, and these tie directly back to the things that we just went through. So if you're doing them, then you already have answers. Some of you may already have answers. This is what you've done year after year, but you've never written it out anywhere. You've never put that icon on the flyer. But these are the next steps then to make sure that you're truly inviting people. And that last one, people's inner self, they're asking, are you expecting me? I want to know. I want to know that you're expecting me. I don't want to be surprised when I get there and I feel like you weren't looking for me. It's like a party where you invite your friends and you know one's a vegetarian and you order pepperoni pizza. And your friend looks at you. When you're expecting people, you've thought about each of them. You've thought about the possibility for people to show up, and you've got options. That's the cool thing. And when inclusion isn't present, it's felt. We have a recreation survey that we put out in lots of different places, and we just randomly ask people to describe a time they decided not to go to something because someone in their group couldn't participate because it wasn't accessible or inclusive. We've gotten lots and lots of different answers. This person wrote outdoor concerts. We didn't move along at the same pace. People looked at us like we all had three heads. Our child is nonverbal. And it was like they were asking us, why are we here? So you won't see that. You might see the person who can't get up the curb because there's no curb cut. You might see that literally during the event and go provide assistance. But you won't see this. But this is the thing that keeps people from participating. They will opt out no matter how pretty your flyer is. And I know we can't control, let's say you have 100 to 500 people coming to your event. You can't control everybody's stuff, right? The baggage they carry around disability. But you can set the tone for the event. And you can set that visibly throughout your event so that hopefully people society, right, our community members will go along with it and create and be a part of that, that feeling of welcoming everybody. Intentional inclusion is also felt, which is the other cool thing. And Amy said to me, Anita, it was one of the easiest things I've done in my decades of living with a spinal cord injury. Easier than going to my own bank, easier than going to get groceries, easier than going to work. I just drove up with a friend, rolled over in my chair, and he had us in the kayak in minutes. It's like he knew I was coming. The backstory to this, Amy was one of RAA's founding members, and for 6 years, I had been telling people they could go to Erie Canal Boat Company for an inclusive kayaking experience, and she just hadn't gone yet. And that she told me afterwards, she said, I was with my friend and I thought, let's go do that thing Anita's been telling me about for 6 years. And I didn't know they were coming. Peter didn't know they were coming. She literally just parked and went in. And she said, I was stunned. I thought it would take 15, 20 minutes. And she said, I was out there kayaking. I spent my hour and a half kayaking. It wasn't about the physical accessibility. It certainly helped, but it really was about this sense of expectation that people are supposed to roll up and go kayaking, and that she was supposed to be there. So that's what we're looking for. The state, through the Canal Quarters events programming opportunities, is providing some of the most exceptional experiences for people. And with 26% of the population with a disability, you're going to be pulling people from every single community when they learn that your event is expecting them. I mentioned that party. The key to it is doing all of this in advance. And that's why I'm really appreciative of this step to open it up to you before you even write your application. To take these moments very intentionally to think about, how are you? What thing can you add to yours? What approach can you add to your event this year that will make it more inclusive than last year? You're going to be receiving some resources, at least these. One of these is new. I haven't even given it to y'all yet, but it'll be added into your packet for the event descriptions. One is an overview of these key planning principles. And remember, one of the step ones was to read the person first, identity first language glossary. So you'll have a link to that. But I want to open it up. I want to take a moment to have you take a moment and think back through this wild list of things. I will say inclusion is a journey, not a checklist. But I think today you have some things that you could legitimately say, yep, we're going to have X, Y, and Z. And that's one of the things we wanted to initiate with you today. But thanks for being a part of it. Thanks for what I hope will be the most inclusive experience on the canal ever in our history in this upcoming cycle. And yeah, let's open up for questions.
Anita, we did get oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we got a question in the chat about whether or not, could you share this PowerPoint presentation with participants?
I believe it's going to be presented, like they're going to have access to the to this today, right? The recording?
The recording, that's correct.
Yes. And the others will come as handouts, I believe, right?
Right. So we have the handouts that will be linked to in the program guide, so you can check the resource portion of the program guide for this information. Thank you. Go ahead, Mary.
Well, Anita, thank you so much. This has been very informative and helpful, and I really appreciate you taking the time. Jean had asked for those who just are beginning to incorporate accessibility, could you reiterate your top 3 things to do? If you had to pick 3. I know there's a lot of information, but
yeah, I thought I was doing good giving you this short list today. That's because it is only the short list. I think one of the things when we're working with organizations and businesses and planners is to make it so intentional that you stop. You stop the planning process to be able to start the planning process from a lens of inclusion. Let me give you an example of, remember the eclipse, that big thing that came through and transformed our lives for a day of darkness. So the eclipse planners had a year to start pushing some of these into their plans. And I got a call from one, maybe 6 or 7 months out. And they were going to have an event. It was going to be, outside in a big field area near the parking lot, so people didn't have to walk real far. He said, so we've been looking at this accessibility stuff, and we're going to, I think what we're going to end up having is we're going to have people with disabilities go over to the left, and people without disabilities will go out to the right into the field. And I said, well, can we stop for a minute and think about this event? It's supposed to be the thing for you to do with your family, with your favorite people, because it's going to last forever in your mind. So why would we just drove here together? Why would we split up? For that family, the odds are they all would have gone over to the disability section. I'm not quite, sure what was really in their mind, but I could tell they had something in their mind that made sense. But for me, it didn't make sense. This was supposed to be the community uniter, building our shared experience. And so I said, don't do that. Let's talk about the way that you see the mass going and let's look at ways that you can address what you think are the issues over there. You know, is it Moby mats, the mat systems that get people out where you want? Like what else was the problem for him? So, Jean, I think my first answer is stop what you think you're going to do next year. For some of you, this may be the same event you've been doing. You're just wanting to incorporate some more features and enhancements into it. But you have to step back from what you've been doing or what you think makes sense to be able to say, we've probably been missing some people. So we need to remember that first quote. We've got to change the system. So we're not just trying to fit people in. Oh, they're going to start coming now. They go over here. No, they're going to start coming now. How do we all move now? Sometimes it is a route change, literally. Sometimes it's the addition of a Moby mat that makes it work. So that's my first one. Second and third, go to where we just ended with of event description. Don't go through all this work and don't tell people about it. It'll do you no good, you won't feel good, and you won't get new visitors because of the work that you did. So spend some time there as you're planning your event to consider, how will I tell people? And specifically for this grant application, how will you tell the disability community? Because you need to ask yourself, have I ever marketed to the disability community? And then that might lead to the who is the where are they, right? So if you do a Google search of disability organizations or disability providers in my region, up will pop a number of organizations. That's your start list. You find a contact number. If you're ready to send out your information, you say, here's what's coming up. We've added these enhancements this year. We hope that you know about this event and hope to see you there. Great way to get some good feedback as well. But definitively, how you actually advertise it makes a huge difference. We have seen people that do some of these and they do put it on their flyer, but then they don't actually market to the intended population. So there's a disconnect. And then for my third one, can I combine like 5? Do a walkthrough, go through from flyer to parking lot to space, see if it works. Did you put your bathrooms 900 yards from anything accessible? Pull them back in. Make sure the connectivity, the function of your event works. Those are my top 3.
Thank you, Anita. Ashley also posted some links in the chat for the grants and for the grants resources page and also the program guide. Does anyone else have any questions?
While they're thinking, I have an add-on piece. So just to be crystal clear, I broke it into functional ability, those 5 categories. But if you're looking for names of disabilities, remembering that there's intellectual, developmental, physical disabilities, and there's medical conditions, and there's aging related life changes to our bodies. So you aren't just looking at somebody that uses a wheelchair. You're looking at a variety of us coming in, and that's an important thing to remember, that we're not just asking you to say the entrance to the event is ramped. Okay. How else are you pulling in people that might not have mobility needs to this experience? So just a key piece with that.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you being here today, and we look forward to your applications in the fall. Thanks, Anita.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck with it
Take
all.
care.
See you.